I knew about a year and a half ago, I was not going to focus on Facebook, Instagram. I even tried Substack and I was like, I don't feel called to it. I don't want to use it. I like the idea of actually building a small, it doesn't even mean it's going to be small, but like a community and really intimate, connected, where I can speak directly to them.
Welcome back to another episode of Launch Your Private Podcast. Today we have a coaching episode with Meghan Mann, founder of Simple Shifts. Welcome to the podcast. Happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you both for having me. I'm really excited.
I love what we're going to talk about. Now, we chatted a little bit before we hit record. I think this episode is going to resonate with a lot of folks as you are building something new, relatively new. I think the desire to not want to build something using social media is probably resonating with a lot more people, especially these days. And so really talking a little bit today about the offer. How are we driving traffic? How are we potentially using a private podcast as a lead magnet to attract the right people that are going to ultimately be the right clients for you in your coaching program? So I'm super excited. Why don't we start by having you talk a little bit, just tell the listeners, what it is that you do, who you serve, kind of give a little bit of a broad overview of your business.
Yeah, so I love to work with people that are in the in-between space. And some might say we're always kind of in an in-between space, like who we were and who we desire to be. But those especially navigating the uncertainty and they don't have clarity of their next steps. They don't know what they want. They don't know if it's a true desire, if it's a distraction. And so I really work with them to hone in first, to reconnect with their intuition, to get really clear about what it is they actually want. And then I call it to make the healthy steps that they don't need to heal from, right? Because I'm sure we've all made steps that were reactive versus intuitive. And we've kind of seen what happens after that. I know I have. So I'm really passionate about supporting people in making those choices that they don't need to heal from and that they feel really confident. And that requires building trust back in themselves after so much self-abandonment over the years and outsourcing their validation and not trusting themselves and going against what was really true for them.
Nice. Thanks for that. And your primary offer, just to level set and to kind of anchor the conversation, is coaching. Is going to be a coaching program. I know you offer group coaching, and then, select clients you would take one-on-one if that fit your availability and things like that. But primarily what we really are looking to do here is take an audio lead magnet, so private podcast as a lead magnet, to hopefully talk and develop a relationship with our potential clients to invite them then to this group coaching program.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been primarily focusing on one-to-one over the last couple of years, and obviously started in like a pilot and a beta program. And then, it is evolved and it's changed. And this last year I've piloted doing it in group coaching. And that's where I want to take it next, is really focusing on group coaching and a lot less on the one-to-one side.
Love it. Okay, perfect. So to get started, let's talk a little bit more about your ideal client. So where they are, maybe the words they might use to describe what they're feeling, or maybe if they're going to talk to their best friend or type something in Google to search for something, what is it that they feel like they're looking for, or what is that need or no need that they think is, I know you have a different level of awareness of what's actually happening and what they need at the time, but what do they're looking for or trying to solve?
Yeah, I think a lot of them start at the beginning of like, they think they need to change their location, their job, all the outside things so they look at those things, right? They maybe feel misaligned. And what it usually comes down to is they're not honoring themselves. They're not stepping into their truth. They're not setting boundaries. They're not taking action where they feel called to. So I've actually had a bit of trouble on like, what would be that Google search in there. But I think I notice a pattern where it goes outward first. They're so focused on changing all the outward things to make them feel a certain way, when there's so many choices within themselves that they're not making to support them to then eventually make the outer changes. I call it like going from the inside out.
That makes sense. And you're seeing it at a deeper awareness than likely they are. So they're probably problem aware, right? Your audience is, I feel like I need change. I feel unsettled. I don't even know what I want.
Scattered.
Scattered.
Yeah.
Yep. Probably I would put that under the umbrella of like decision clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, if I'm looking for like a marketing way to anchor some of the messaging that we want to lead with, and they're probably searching for like, how do I, an exercise or something to help me figure out what I actually want. Or, I think that sounds like where some of your
Yeah, I
folks
think
are
you got
headed.
it. Yeah. You have
Before
more the
they,
marketing vision of that. Yeah,
yeah.
that's on point. Yep.
And then through that audio, like through your content, then you're helping reveal, like you're almost like pulling back some of the layers and you're helping understand what's actually happening. It's about some of the root causes that they're unaware of, the patterns that they're unaware of, right? Like they're not going to know that they're searching for, typically, most people, I would say. And like in the grip of something like this is they're not aware that they're searching for outside changes, instead of reflecting on the inside. But I think that's where some of the content comes in, is we're helping them. We're taking them from where they're starting from. So we're meeting where they're at, the conversation they're having today with themselves, with their significant others, right? With Google, whatever. And then I think it's, helping the content is what's going to help shift some beliefs and create some different awareness and then make the invitation to work with you. Now, I love the fact that you have like the deck and other things that could be an alternate path if they don't feel like they're ready for coaching. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think like the invitation is coaching, and then the other, like I know you had mentioned workshops is something, and you might offer other things like the deck that could, I would say like downsell, but I'm using that in air quotes, but like, the other options that they have if they're not ready for your core offer.
Yeah, the deck is a great place just to start building that self-awareness and consistency, right? A lot of them struggle with consistency as well. So it's like, not only what do I want, but how do I just start practicing and committing to myself, right? That's part of the self-trust that's been missing, because they say they want it, but then they're not doing it. And so that trust just keeps getting broken over and over again. So the deck is really, it can be a first place tool to just start practicing. And the beauty with the deck as well is they can kind of stack the different shifts that work for them to create their own rituals. So it can build on itself to prepare them for then, kind of really that next step of a group program or one-to-one, which is a 3-month commitment, right, of showing up and doing the work.
Perfect. Okay. And that's where that audio content helps them have, because we don't have demand yet where they're at right now, being problem aware. They don't have the demand that they need to practice. There's no awareness that that's it. Like once part of the content that's going to happen in this lead magnet is helping them have the awareness that that is something that they need to do to get the outcome that they want, or that these tools are available, or like the language that you're using, like stacking shifts so that they can develop rituals. All of that is amazing. And they have no idea what that is. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right now, until they, find you and discover that this is what they've been searching for, right?
Yeah.
For forever. So, or this is what they've been searching for. So, okay, with that in mind, let's take a look. Now, you had found, I think, Hello Audio at the end of last year.
Yep.
And you took immediate action, which I think deserves all the props, right, in the world, which I love. Like, love immediate action takers. Love that you put something out there. And I think this is a great opportunity to take a look at the private podcast you have now and make sure that the positioning, the angle, the big promise is going to make sense in the ecosystem that we just laid out. Okay.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about what the private podcast is right now.
So yeah, I discovered this and everything in me go for it. Like, this is it. I've been waiting it. I love teaching. I love coaching. I love speaking. That's definitely my stronger suit. And I knew about a year and a half ago, I was not going to focus on Facebook, Instagram. I even tried Substack, and I was like, I don't feel called to it. I don't want to use it. I love the ease of Hello Audio. So I just want to say thank you for building such a great product, really. And that it doesn't have to be public. I like the idea of actually building a small, it doesn't even mean it's going to be small, but like a community and a really intimate, connected, where I can speak directly to them. So yeah, I just checked all the boxes, but I kind of just launched it. So I had to backtrack. I've had an email list before even I became a mom a few years ago. And it was for a free event in my old hometown that I was offering. But this year, I just realized that it's not resonating. Like, this is not who I'm speaking to. Like, it doesn't feel like it's a match. And I don't even know if it really was a match in the last couple of years. And so I really had this feeling I wanted to start from zero. But in the beauty of that email list was I was doing with my deck a weekly intention. I pick a card, I talk about it, I invite them, to practice along with me. I'm practicing the whole week with that intention as well. I come back with my own insights to share, to kind of give examples. Like you said, maybe they don't even know what you're talking about, right? So I give live examples of mine, but it was all written. And so when I discovered Hello Audio, and in the face of AI, to be honest, I was like, it's kind of nice to be authentic in my own voice and make mistakes. And sometimes you hear my daughter kind of screaming, having fun in the background. And like, I don't know, I just kind of liked the realness that I could offer through doing it. And I don't need to script it. And so I just kind of went on the fly and started doing these weekly intentions. I wrote that email list a couple times. I said, I am switching over. If you want to join, here's the link. I did it 2 or 3 times and some of them joined. And I was like, great. That's perfect. So I launched it with that, the weekly intentions. Every Monday, I release a weekly intention. On Fridays, I don't guarantee every Friday, but on Fridays, I like to drop an insight episode, I call it. So just something to remind them I'm also here. We're working on things. This is what's alive for me. Maybe you resonate with it. Maybe it just plants a little seed. And then because it was Christmas time and December, I had this hit to do a gratitude ceremony on New Year's Eve, and I had never done one. So I tried using Hello Audio to promote that event, but also to then do a private prep feed for them. Didn't go so well, but it was a good practice. I didn't have that many people to test it on, but it was fun to kind of practice and see the possibilities of what I could do privately in another feed. I don't even know if I did it right, but I just created a new tag, which was for the gratitude ceremony. So anybody that signed up in my, I can't remember the type form for that event, I then tagged them and put them into the Hello Audio podcast. So I was just kind of having fun in December. I was traveling. I was just doing it on the fly. Yeah, I was testing it and just seeing what are the possibilities without really having clarity of how to hone my energy and where to put my attention. So that's kind of it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So a couple things. I love the fact that you took action. I love the fact that this was a very organically created asset that came out of wanting to talk to people that you kind of already had a relationship with, right? Yeah, it might have been a little bit of a change in topic based on, where the other email list was coming from, but we still had a relationship with those people. And so creating something that is adding value every week is a little bit more nurture, like where that belongs, like in the ecosystem of your business, and where that asset is going to, like the job that asset is most likely going to be really great at doing is going to be nurturing people who have already come into your ecosystem and already have known you in some way. Because when you have it, which is amazing, and it's a great use of that. So I'm not saying
it's kind of like a newsletter almost. Correct. Like it's like an audio newsletter is like like where I see it, and it's a newsletter. It totally can convert people, but it typically not. It's just a different. It's to Nora's point when we started this conversation was like, what are their problems? That kind of thing. This like weekly insight thing is not solving that problem. It is an amazing touch point, and it shows your personality and your, view of the world, all these really important things. And like, I love that you connected it to AI, because we're also kind of talking about that ourselves internally, where we're like, wow, where does Hello Audio fit into this whole things that are happening on the internet right now? Anyways, I digress. But to Nora's point, that nurture piece is like, this is great. Keep going. And what a great like touch point and thing that you can use in so many different ways. And if you don't want to be on social, right? So it's like, maybe you're not posting, weekly carousels, right? And so this is your version of that, where again, that early content has a purpose, but it's not necessarily going to be a conversion. What we want to help you with is to grow this program. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I can see that point. Nora, Thank you for that. Because I didn't connect that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And exactly that, right? It's the ongoing relationship building, the ongoing touch points that will work from in that nurture spot. So when people come in as leads, they don't convert right away. Maybe they purchase the deck, maybe they don't. but it's about continuing the conversation in a medium that is not social, that is not other places, but it's a continuance of a conversation, not the start of a conversation. Okay. And so that I think is amazing for folks that you could offer. Like that's the opt-in I would use, probably like more middle of funnel after people have come in. But if I were going to say, okay, let's create a lead magnet where I can drive traffic to this sucker and it's going to drive leads, that's not that. For a couple reasons, right? One is we already talked about the continuance and the awareness level. Two is that lead magnets that are typically, they're usually specific problem solvers, right? Or like specific, even if it's not like a problem, it's like desire, like I want this, it's like specific outcomes. There's a currency exchange that happens when I give you my real actual primary email address and not use a crappy one. And that lead magnet is giving me something in exchange, right? And the more clear that currency exchange can be about what it's going to do for that listener or for that person on the other end of that email address, the more conversions that's going to have. And the key is getting that messaging and that hook like aligned with whatever that next step is going to be, so that the content we just talked about that lead magnet has to do, which is shift some beliefs, create some awareness. There's educational content there about what their underlying, issues or root causes are, the epiphanies that we need to help them have, not just tell them, but help them feel and actually believe themselves, then would lead to the invitation to the coaching program, right? So like typically lead magnets are really great as a container, not an ongoing thing. Because keep in mind, if you're ongoing and giving continuous value, it almost in some ways can cannibalize the need for coaching because they feel like they're getting you on a regular basis anyway.
Yeah. Even though that's not going to get them the full like transformation and what happens in coaching. Yeah.
So I have a question on that because I had an idea for a lead magnet originally that I think I shared with you about like kind of this foundation, but something else just came to me as you were saying that, like it's a problem solver where I'm piloting a program now, like a workshop. It's a 3-week workshop and it's called Waking Up, Breaking the Should Cycle. And, I'm almost wondering if maybe this could be something as a lead magnet that I could maybe turn into some kind of lead magnet. But then you said you don't want to continue that because then they think they're getting the value without actually kind of joining your program or your workshops or whatever that is. So I don't know, maybe the original one was a better idea, but that just kind of popped up where I was like, I wonder if breaking the should cycle, right? Because we're looking at like, what are the earliest shoulds? Why do you do it? What's the validation attached to it? What are the choice filters that you're going through as you're making these, like fear, love, scarcity, abundance, right? And then also looking at where you're shoulding others and where you're creating these expectations of others. And I take them similar to my program through curiosity into commitment and then into the cultivation piece, which is the pillars of my program. So I don't know, that just kind of popped up as something alive.
It could work, and I'll give you all the caveats of what are the attributes we're really looking for. So that's still a container. It's still an audio series. There's still a start and an end, right, to it in terms of what the content is that you're covering. It's not necessarily an ongoing thing. When I look at something like that, I would say that would work if it speaks to a known need. So if your people are like, man, I'm stuck in this should, right? Versus if they're not using that language or if that's not the problem they think they have, it could be why you keep repeating the same patterns in a simple shift to interrupt it, right? Some people are aware that like there's awareness, not everyone. There's some people that are aware that they keep repeating certain patterns. And so that could, because it's like, I know I do this, I need this. Versus, stop your should cycle. If they don't think they are in a should cycle, they're I don't need this, right?
Yeah.
It could also be some of the things I looked at for you when I was looking at your website too, and just having the conversation earlier about the decision clarity and kind of the knowing the psychology of someone who's kind of like doesn't know what they want. It could be something like a grounding audio or audio series for when you're between versions of yourself. Like that could work. Or like, when you're trying to make a big decision or when you're on the verge of change. Because it sounds like that's where your person is. Like they almost feel like, I'm trying to use a verge
going to the gym. I should go outside and give myself 100%.
So it could
should be happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's making sure that whatever language you put out in front of them clearly speaks to something that they already know they want. And usually we talk about like the currency exchange is like a clear increase or a clear decrease in something. Like I want to increase clarity. I want to decrease stress. It's like, what is it? And then use words that they specifically are using to describe what they want or what they don't want. So it's like, and I don't remember who did like the escape and arrival. Like, yeah, what am I trying to escape from? Where am I actually trying to go? Where am I supposed to? And trying to use the words they use to describe that. That's the lead magnet that's going to work there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think this has been my struggle for a couple of years is like letting go of my language and, because in session I can meet them where they are and I can, see what's happening. But then in terms of like a marketing standpoint, I've always struggled with this piece specifically.
Yes. It's not that you have to, it's about the language that's going to open the conversation where they're at. And through your content, through the relationship with you, through the connection with you, and through your education and awareness building and storytelling, they'll develop that language, right? And they'll have it, which makes it a lot easier to then use when you're selling your coaching program and your decks and, all the other things that how you're serving that audience. But until they own that language, until they know what it means, it'll be like a scroll past or like it won't resonate, it won't click, and it won't be something they're like, oh, I need that. And that's exactly what I want them to think when they see that asset. Like, I need that. That's exactly what I've been looking for. Or even curiosity of, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if that would help me. Right? That's what I want them to think versus I don't even know what that means. That's not what I want them to think.
Yeah. I don't either. Yeah. Because I know there can be a lot of value if it does align, right? I really like the idea around patterns and around the decision making, like what do I actually even want? And not knowing, right? Because also with social media, like people have really lost their critical thinking. Like they're so confused of what they actually want because there's so much out there that they're getting confused by versus themselves. So that's a great point too. Like, what do I even want? What are the decisions that I need to make to clarify what I want, right?
I just had
not even get what I want, but
total clarity. I just had a thought, Nora, and this is kind of a question for Nora. Since she's like not doing social, sometimes a lot of the heavy lifting of like those touch points of like, I start following you and then she starts talking about should, and it's like all that, like, what do you think about when you like follow someone? And sometimes that like content does the work. And then they're like, oh, I want her private podcast because I'm immersed in your world with your language and some of the problem. I guess what I'm getting at is it even more important what you're pointing out? I know almost everyone should do this, but like, I'm also trying to like pull back this layer and like re-highlight, like she's not going to be on social. So we have to think about like, what is leading that content? We haven't talked about traffic yet. So maybe it's also just like how we're switching to like the other problem you wanted help with like getting people to sign up. But I'm just thinking about that. Like, what are they experiencing before they even see this thing they need to click on? And like, it might be doing a lot of heavy lifting depending on what you're doing out to get them there.
Yeah, I guess a couple things, like even for folks that are using social, it's still really important that you're using words that they'll use and not, because people will scroll past. And most of the time, the follow comes from that initial engagement. And if that initial engagement never happens, there's never a follow. Right. And so it's always like when I think about top of funnel or pillar one content, like, depending on which framework you're using, it's always like the conversation starter, right? Is the way I describe it. So it's like that conversation starter has to be in their language for us to even start a conversation. Because if it's not speaking to a known need, a known desire, a pain point they know they have, or feels completely irrelevant to them, we will never engage in further conversations. There won't be a follow. There won't be any interest. They'll just continue to go right past, whether it's an email, a summit, you're in a bundle, like you're on a podcast. It doesn't matter where that intro happens, but it is also true on social that we want a lot of content that, could you have other content and talk about rituals and shifts? Sure, if you were on social, but that only is going to be effective if people are resonating with that, unless they're already in your world because they came through a different conversation starter.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But even it's funny, as you were like top of funnel this, I was like, what is she talking about?
It's okay.
This language, the
conversation starter. Think about this. Like if you were like, I met you, right? We met up and we had coffee at a local coffee shop, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we hear a lady sitting next to us, maybe she's on the phone or like talking about how she can't, like, I don't even know what I want, right? It's like, we need to be able to engage her because you can help her. Like, there's so many things you could do for this woman. You could change her life. And yet we can't immediately be like, you need rituals and like, we need to stack those shifts. Because she would be like, what in the actual hell is happening? Right? Like it's always
and she wouldn't say that in real life, right? Like, I love that because it's like, that's, it's that concept of like, you're dating these people too, right? And you would never just like run up to them and be like,
but that's a really good example, like to paint
that is a really good example, Nora. I haven't heard that one from you before. That's a good one.
I didn't add all the details of like the people who don't use headphones. Like, come on. Like, do you want my help with this? Because now I'm just going to help you because now I know what's going on in your life or in your business. But I think it's important to think, it's like, I know a lot of online and like this feels kind of weird when it's like a black box of like digital content. But at the end of the day, we're just having conversations with other humans. And so the way we start those conversations isn't, hopefully on their terms, right? And not bots,
that'll be less and less true.
But yes. Fair. Is in their language. And it's about leading with empathy. And, before we can educate, before we can shift false beliefs, before we can reveal root causes and help them have epiphanies that will unlock other things for them, before any of that happens, it's about leading with empathy and allowing to have enough of a connection that they'll actually listen to those things.
Yeah, the rapport is really important for sure. Yeah.
But you've got lots of options. So I love the lead magnet. I mean, I think you had talked about like the shoulding piece of it could even be reframed as like 5 signs that you're living out of obligation. Right? And like
you're doing this in audio, right? You could, and is it like a series or is it like a one-off?
Could be a series. No, could be like a private podcast with 5 episodes. Or, if you wanted to do one, it could be like a 10-minute energy check. There's ways I think that you can leverage whatever, and I want you to like think about, as you go back and really feel like what of those really resonates with you. Because the cool part about audio is that it's like a lot easier to create than decks and, all this other stuff.
I don't enjoy the other stuff. So
yeah, same, very much same. So there's a reason you could create all of these lead magnets and test them. You start with the one that brings you the most joy, the one that really you feel that you can, bring your passion to and your energy to, because your people will feel that. And that's the lead magnet that ultimately, however you structure that. And there's an asset for Hello Audio that's Launch Your Audio Lead Magnet. And we'll make sure we'll put the link in the show notes. But that'll help you, once you have your topic and that hook, it'll help you structure some of your episodes so that you do have that lead with empathy, help them with what are the shifts that we need to help them make for them to say yes to coaching, and then, make that invitation once we've kind of done that work to help them with their beliefs, beliefs about themselves, beliefs about what they should be doing, beliefs about, external factors that they, it's causing them to spin, like all those things is what that content does. So that by the time they are done listening to that lead magnet, that audio lead magnet, they're in a different place. They have different awareness. They might even start using different language. But that's ultimately the place I need them to be in order for them to be even remotely more likely to say yes to that coaching program.
So I really like that. I think I actually downloaded that asset, but I didn't know what to do with that at the time. So I was listening to episodes to understand it. So I think I have it, but definitely send it again just in case. And, I guess what I'm curious about is like, if I build out this lead magnet, like, where do I put it? Because if I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on Facebook, like I could, but I don't want to use it. Like, I really committed to myself not going that way. I have WhatsApp groups. I'm based in Costa Rica. There's a lot of expat groups, mom groups, ladies groups. Like, there's a lot happening there. But I guess I get a little bit like, do I work on SEO? Like, is that something? Like, I don't know which way to go.
That's an option. So let's talk about that. I think even for folks that don't want to use social, and I get it, like I really do understand that part, I would still make sure that they can access that resource in your bio. Like that should be something. And here's why. Like, even though
Nora, can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we can also think of these places as like page fronts that just live. And so you could create an Instagram account, and you could very clearly, it was a very popular thing a couple years ago, the like 9 grid. You could also just do 3 at the top. And it's just like, here's who I am, a post, like a carousel, like here's people, like how I work with people, like literally treat it like a website, because the reality is, even if you don't want to show up there and make that a source of traffic, your people might be there and like experiencing and coming across and Googling you and doing all the things. And so these like entities. And I think what's cool too, another way to look at it is like, maybe that's this season. And so you can start the account and put it, and like maybe something changes in the future. I think too, I also want to point out is from a traffic perspective, it sounds like you're anti like social. So like the TikToks, the Instagrams, the like, you need to post a bajillion times a day.
Yeah.
Are you anti things like Pinterest or YouTube? Because there are other, like they all work. And I think like you know, going in and thinking about like what you truly want, or like maybe you show up on Instagram and it's just Instagram Live and you do live card pulls, because I know that content crushes, right? And so like if that feels good, you don't have to do Instagram in like the way that you see and thinks it's perfect. There are strategies, or I should back up and I say YouTube Live is like definitely an option there, because that turns into a video automatically. And what we love about YouTube is you start leaning into SEO, and it's something that like, I don't know, I wish we just like did a little bit of years ago. And I don't ever think there's ever too late to do something, but that content lit, like that is a search engine. When I think of Facebook posting and Instagram posting, it's got such a short like life. And so I think I just wanted to point that out, because we could all blanket it and say like, I just don't want to show up on the internet, because that is a fair thing to do right now also. But I wanted to point out that those things exist too. And then, you know, I was thinking too about what you were saying, like a lot of people are finding a very great space on Threads, which again is social, but is social in the early days of Twitter. And it's, I don't know, it's still like a space that feels less like, let's get into the shoulds. Like, you should do this on Instagram. It should look like this. Like this, you know what I mean? And like, again, Threads is like connected to Instagram, and we didn't go into deeply why you don't want to get on social, but I just wanted to bring up those things. Maybe someone listening that resonates with, and it's cool if it doesn't resonate with you, but I wanted to bring that up because I do see like a distinction between those types of strategies. And then Nora's knows a lot about SEO. I tend to go more into the social space, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just answer that. It's not like this hardcore rule. It's like I tried Instagram couple years ago when I had the clarity in the program, the deck was built. I decided I was going to go on Instagram and I was going to work with
that your
Instagram.
channel.
Yeah, I didn't really have any kind of strategy, but it was amazing for me because I got a lot of clarity about, you know, I got warmed up. I started with like quotes, and then I was doing audio voiceover, and then I was doing video. So it was a really amazing process for me, just in my confidence of showing up online and like clarifying my message. But it was just a really clear get off, like about a year and a half ago. I committed for 6 months, 5 days a week. That was my commitment.
Nice. Yeah. That's more than most people do. Good.
I didn't grow. Like I didn't, you know, speaking to Nora's point, I definitely don't think I was speaking to their language or their problem, but it was just really beautiful an inner process for me to be on there. Yeah. And I saw it and I got a lot of value, but it was just, I asked myself this question, like, if I really want to grow on any of these channels, is this where I want to put my time and my attention? And I have very limited, because I am a mom and I'm about to be a mom of 2. So it was a clear no for me. Like, I don't, I love just popping in on a voice memo. You know, it's what I do anyways. I take walks and I voice memo myself, or I send voice memos to friends. I don't send texts. Like, it's just a way of my being that really clicked. I'm not opposed. Like, I did try Pinterest for a minute for my deck, but again, like, I don't have that marketing background. Yeah. And so I'm trying to ask myself, like, do I want to deep dive and learn all of these things? and scatter my attention in a few different places.
I think Nora probably has some thoughts. I have some thoughts on that too. But
so I'll land it there. It's just
no, I think that helps. That gives me context of Kathy Olson just made a post about this, a friend of mine, and she was just like, are you somebody who like commits, or are you somebody who like never gets around to committing? And what I get from you is like, you commit and you try stuff and you like carry it through. I'm a ADD, like look all these different places. And so it's really hard for me to commit. Right. And so I love that for you. And it also like is going to resonate with the people I think that you're attracting. So like, this is cool. Like learning like your perspective and what you've tried. I definitely have some ideas, but I want Nora to go and see if you can help a little bit too.
Yeah. Okay. So it helps to understand that it's not a never situation.
Totally. It's not a never.
So there's a couple of things. I think I've definitely consulted with several companies who have tried social, and we've had this conversation where I've tried insert whatever the platform was, ads, organic, LinkedIn, like I've heard them all. And it was just a lot of effort for very little or no return. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so typically what that tells me is that and I'll check this, I'll go through their social and I'll make sure before I actually like say this, but most of the time when that happens is that there was a flaw in their content strategy. Mm-hmm. And here's what I mean by that. God bless all the Meta and influencers that teach this, because they'll teach you tactics and things that, honest to God, will only work for them because Meta is paying them. Okay, like they're optimizing for different things on their account, and their account is favored because they are Meta partners or influencers, and like that shit's never going to work on your account. It's never going to come out right when they're selling their stuff. Okay, so rants over like that, and that's what people are like. Well, I bought this course, and I'm like, yeah, that was never going to work. So when you take a look at like what is a content strategy that actually works on organic social media, it comes down to the customer conversation. It's not about. Yes, you have to understand the different formats and how people on Threads expect to receive content and how people on like Instagram expect to receive content. So there are nuances, but the messaging is consistent. There is a golden thread through a content strategy that most people miss because they have like, well, I do this on Instagram and I do this on Twitter or on X or whatever though. So it's like, but that's not, that organic content strategy is just going to create busyness and not actual results. So any content strategy that you're ever going to put on social media, if you ever choose it, and then I'll move off of social and give you more options, in the way that I've done this for years, is that every single piece of content that you produce on a social media platform should be very clearly tie back to a business goal. Now, what do I mean by that? Lead gen, like actual numbers that grow the business, not vanity metrics that no one gives a shit about, but like things that are actually, like I would say, right, shares, creating content that's shareable is a leading metric into leads.
That's a big one, and it's also a big one for being found.
Right, but like likes, you know what I mean? Like there's certain things I would look at, but there are every single piece. So like a quote, most people will be like, I just need to show up and I need to, like, I feel like I need to be visible. So they'll create a quote card. I'm like, cool. What is that quote card doing for your business? What is it, generating a lead? Is it converting people into a specific offer? And they're like, no, I just needed to show up so I could check the box. Like, that's not a content strategy. That's a content calendar, but it's not a content strategy. And so there's a difference. And so all I'm going to say is that if it's something that you ever wanted to revisit in the future, there's a way, and you don't have to have an audience to start. Like there's ways to create a content strategy that is anchored in the real customer conversation that's happening, not the trends and all the crap that Facebook and Meta try to get you to believe that you have to post it on social to get results, because that's not actually true. Okay, so that's like that way. And to be fair, having a customer conversation that then is translated onto social makes your content a lot more consistent. It makes it a lot easier to know what you're posting. It's like, it feels like doing it the other way feels like a hamster wheel where you're like constantly creating content and you're just like, I don't know, what should we create next? Oh, there's a trending audio. Let's use it. Like that is a great way to put in a lot of effort that's not going to give you a return and leave a bad taste in your mouth. Okay.
Yeah. So can I say one thing on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I have gotten it because there's these two moms that I love called the Homemade Mothers, and they basically had their own things going on the last years, and now they've joined and launched this thing, which is their first crochet class to offer. And I started that in my own motherhood journey. And so I can see it when I go to their page. Like it's a consistent, constant, same messaging, basically over and over and over and over and over. And, and I love it. Like it's so simple, right? I understand. I bought the product. It got me to take the challenge of doing my first blanket, and so I can see like there's a few people that come to mind that I'm like, I get it, because they keep repeating.
Yep. It feels a little repetitive, but
it's super repetitive, but it's effective. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. Yeah. I don't see it yet how I would be able to do it or if I want to do it, but I get what you need to be doing. Yeah.
Yes. And to be fair, no matter what marketing strategy you use, the consistent thread of what that customer conversation is going to be is like from the start, from the, it's like it's going to hold across any platform that you decide to put content on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's key. Okay. So beyond social, let's talk about some options beyond social. So we talked about SEO. So SEO, yes, is an option, tends to be a little bit more of like a long-term play than short-term. I would say it all depends. Like some industries, some keywords are going to be more viable than others to rank for. Now with folks that are using AI for search and what that's actually pulling from, there's a lot of variables into making SEO consistent. And that's a dedication of a lot of content. Like you have to be really dedicated to be able to publish content and to update content, to build backlinks. Like there is a little bit more depth. Now, are there people out there that you can hire to help? 100%. Yes. It is not an overnight driving traffic to your page, typically.
Yeah, I've heard that. Like it's a slow build. Yeah.
Worth it. Yes. I do think there's something to be said about doing that in parallel if you have capacity. But if the immediate goal is, I want to get 100 eyeballs or 1,000 eyeballs on this landing that to try to see if there's interest for this lead magnet, SEO is not going to make that happen quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about podcast guesting. So showing up as a guest, I think, is important when you're leveraging other people's audiences and getting in front of other people's audiences to create awareness. And so that's always an option, is you could go kind of like on a podcast tour and get in front of other people to spread awareness. And, obviously that matters to create alignment with those audiences so that their audiences, so you actually have people listening and, those audiences would be aligned with what you are talking about and there's interest there. So podcast guesting is an option.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like what if you don't have a following and, you're not really out there, like how do you even get on? Because I would love something like that. I love to have conversation and kind of go back and forth, but I wonder even like, how do you do that? It's like the chicken or the egg, right?
Well, so not every podcast, the big podcasts want you to be a big name and they want you to have, but I will say that sometimes like there are other podcasts that have loyal listenership. They may not be tens of thousands or hundreds or, thousands or millions of people. Yeah. You don't need that, right? Yeah. So if one episode that you guest on gets 100 or 200 downloads, that's 200 people that, found out about you that wouldn't have otherwise found out about you. So every little bit matters. And so for that, would I go on to a directory and look for podcasts and that maybe speak to parents, that speak to folks that are making, critical life transitions. There are ways that you can get in front of audiences that would be relevant, there might be like super niche podcasts, but still very relevant.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. I don't think I even thought, you just think bigger, right? But yeah, I love that idea. That really resonates.
And then partnerships would be the one right after that. Like promotional partners. Sure, you could go into like affiliates. Also, you could just call them referrals. It's kind of like all the same, depending on you structure it. You don't necessarily have to pay people to promote you, although some people will ask for that. There are plenty of people out there will be happy to I'll make a video on my YouTube channel and it is $3,000 and I'll traffic to you or whatever these, folks. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be that way. I will say there are a lot of options where you probably in your network and maybe even on your existing email list have someone who might be a career coach. And this might be something that some of their clients are interested in. It could be something like new parents or like the stress of being a new parent. And like the changes that happen to, our identity when we become a new parent. And some of that, that might resonate. So there's probably people in your life that you already have a connection with that wouldn't be willing to offer this to and it could be, there might be someone that hosts a book club, or like, I used to know someone that kept inviting me to like bridge or like a card. I don't even know how to play. And it was like, come and like, but it was like those, you don't know who's going to be in that room, so that you can make connections with people, and they might have, an audience, or they might do lunch and learns, or they might be in charge of scheduling lunch and learns at their office, where that might be something that they might invite you to do. So it's about really just making sure you're clear. That one is about making sure you're clear about the value you offer, and you have a great like signature story that you can kind of give someone, so that they know exactly the value you provide. So like, oh, I know people that would be interested in that. But it's all about communicating your value, getting those relationships.
Yeah, these are great ideas. I think the podcast guest sounds really good. I think the referral is interesting to kind of explore what that looks like. And yeah, paying somebody $3,000 just to say my name like doesn't resonate at all with me. Like I would prefer to go more organic route, but with intention. It's like paying for followers, right? Like I'm not really interested in those tactics. But yeah, the podcasting guest of like looking and pitching myself, like that's another discomfort, right? To move through and like pitch yourself, but also knowing your value and owning your value. So yeah, I think that one is really interesting to me. I guess I would put it on my website. Like right now I have a couple of freebies, but I would probably put a pop-up right with this new lead magnet when I create it. Because the traffic has improved a lot over the last 6 months. I would say like the traffic has gone up maybe 70% more than it was. I don't really know why, but anyways, like that's fun. I did do a bunch of blogs like a year ago and just let them go up there and be there. But yeah, I think that way is the one that resonates the most, the podcast. Yeah. I was thinking of bringing people in to do episodes, like certain mentors and people that have really been assets on my journey, like my allies on my journey, and bringing in value. But I think that's a later thing, like the membership ideas, the guests podcast coming in. Like I'm really not there. Like I'm so at the ground right now of just how do I bring people right with this lead magnet.
I would say too with the guesting, because it's interesting. You're choosing not to do a public podcast, and we always support that. Particularly if we were like, you notice Nora and I didn't say like make a public podcast, even though you like audio, because like that doesn't drive traffic. However, there is
true. I didn't notice
traffic,
you didn't
and
say
it does
that.
like a little bit. And so, I think from where other people typically are focused on some social channel and you're not. So I don't know that I want to like take the public podcast off the table. But what I love about what you said about the guest is if they've been a mentor to you, you have an established relationship, they helped you at some point in their journey. Like everyone loves talking about themselves and loves being lauded in that way, and as they should. And, if they have an audience, then they can share this private podcast. And I think is it Stephanie Blake, Nora, who created a private podcast that's ongoing. But like everyone else in the outside world would be like, wait, isn't that a public podcast? And then she's like, well, yeah, but they have to email their list when they're on this as a guest weekly. And I get new people that way. And again, we're back to that point of it's intimate. Those people are opting in. You guys have the common, like this is always the borrow other people's audiences. You have the trusted in between person, and they liked you on the, they like the mentor that they got the email from. And so then they sign up, and now you have them somewhere. I think what we're talking about with socials, there needs to be people looking and new. And so that is not a terrible strategy. I wouldn't. And to me, a lift is you make a Zoom link, and you ask somebody who apparently, as I can tell, trusts you and you have a relationship. And so the ask isn't that big. Maybe the ask to email their list about the private podcast might be, and you might want to, give them some templates of some copy and stuff. Make it as easy as possible, but that could bring new people into your world. I'm not against it. And I don't think it's as heavy as a lift. And I don't think there's necessarily anything that I would caution you on as to, because I heard you kind of kick it down the line. I'm like, I don't know. That could be a now thing. But that's for that nurture piece. That is not the lead magnet. And so if you have that nurture ongoing podcast, and you use that strategy as one strategy, the deck is there and this other lead magnet is there. Because to Nora's point, that's the conversion point. And so if they find you through that nurture podcast, and then they maybe opt into the decision or whatever you go with for the lead magnet is a possibility. So I just see audiences coming in. And like, I also, one thing I thought of too, that like black hole of like not doing social, which is such a great thought experiment, because I think that's everyone's default. And I'm like, how do we do this without, a lot of how people build their business, even with partners, Nora, is like, I met people on social and I like got to know who, and so it is hard because there's relationships. Even if you're not the like constant poster and you're a lurker, you could still show up in comments and you could still like see the social media as a relationship building. And I think if with your like values and like what I sense about you as a person, I could see like connection being built that doesn't necessarily have to go posting on some sort of schedule. And I think that's part of it too, because how is someone going to recommend you on social if like you're not there to tag? Do you know what I mean? It's weird that I'm like telling myself that you like have to be on social, but I think what that have to be on social means is you do not have to have a lot of followers to like build a business on social. You could have like a couple hundred. But like, if you show up in comments and like, are connecting people and you're seen as this like relationship building person, like then they see your name and it's not necessarily about your content. So like, I'm just trying to think, where are you building relationships? Go ahead.
Yeah, that can all be done offline too.
It can. So like, that's where
I'm choice of whether or not you want to do that with small kids, which is not.
Because that's the point. Like I notice myself on Instagram, like that's the only one I would use, and it's usually just to check what my husband wants me to check because he's out on the road doing things. Sure. And I find myself not wanting to be on there, and so I'm on there so less. And I check like 2 mom accounts, like that's literally it. Yeah. Like this woman in Canada and the homemade mothers, and I'm like, I like them, and they keep repeating the same content, but I still like it. Yeah. And then I get off, like literally that's what's been happening. So there's not even this desire to even lurk or be there.
Or because that's
I prefer
like
to crochet now.
You're totally right. You're totally right.
And it's been a process, right? Like to get off of there and choose my hands to do something else or bake or do something. And that's been an intentional choice. So I don't know if but like the other thing that came was like offering free events. Like that was something I did locally. The free gratitude, like online even. I did a free gratitude ceremony for New Year's Eve. It was like 9 people I didn't know.
So when you say offering a free event online, how does someone find that free event?
Yeah, so I just used WhatsApp. Like I promoted it, like clients knew about it. So then one client brought like a few people herself.
Okay, so that makes sense to me. And that is also why the guesting piece like made sense to me, because like you don't have no relationships. You have relationships and maybe you don't need new ones, or maybe there are like, maybe this, who knows, maybe you'll work with these crochet women. They sound awesome, right? Like you never know, like people you really like and whatever. Because I think that was the stumbling block for me of just like, because you kept bringing that up and like WhatsApp. Yeah, I mean, that works. Like, that's a place
I'm in
that
Central
people
America,
are.
so WhatsApp is everything.
Yeah, you're so right. And like you being in Costa Rica and being international, that's definitely something. And it sounds like you have a healthy network because you are connected to people who are connected online. And like, maybe that's part of it. Like that you're the spoke in that web. And so can we think of ways to bring their people in your world where the trust is being built? And I think audio is totally that. So I'm getting there. If they're doing some of the heavy lifting with the growing the audiences and stuff, at some point it might feel like you're running out of, but like maybe those in-person things that you're doing locally, you're finding people doing like cool stuff there. I think there's branching opportunities there too. And like, you're on this podcast, right? Like, and we're not like, let's check her socials. Like, she's only allowed to come, like, does not even, like, is not in our onboarding. That means there are other podcasts that are just like that. That's not why we do what we do. And so anyways, I think I love this. I think this is, I hope people listening are getting some value out of like maybe they're also feeling similar things and like are able to see that there are opportunities to like make those connections. And I think audio is cool because it does build that trust. You have to be bingeable. Maybe that's like part of it. You have to be bingeable somewhere. And maybe it's not Instagram and maybe it's not like whatever. And isn't that awesome? Like it doesn't have to be. And the audio truly does build that like intimate connection. Nora and I would say faster than like some of the other strategies out there that you could be doing. So I think you have a lot to work with.
I think you guys gave me so many nuggets. And it's funny, this social media, I don't even know if it's still there. It was so popular in COVID. Clubhouse just appeared in my head. Like, Clubhouse. Is that still out there? I don't even know. But anyway.
I think it is, but
I don't know. It had its hype for a moment and then it just kind of disappeared. But anyway, I hadn't thought about it in like 4 years, but
you're having flashbacks to it.
Yeah, I just had a flashback.
We were there.
Yeah.
Do you remember when? Well, cool. We definitely, it looks like you have a lot to go over. We always say this with coaching too, like we'll reach out, making sure links are all correct and all the things. If you want the transcript for this so you could plug it in or like, get started and not waiting for us to publish, we are more than happy to take care of you in that respect. And like, please keep us posted on this. Like, let us know, if you launch or what it looks like if you want. And we'd love to keep you in our minds and like have you back on the show, right? As like this amazing case study friend. Like that's such a good hook. Let's right? Yeah. How I grew my email list and private podcast without being on social. So yeah.
I have one question that I forgot to ask, if that's okay. When I do this lead magnet and when I get people into the private podcast with the lead magnet, then is it okay with the nurturing piece? Or like, is there something else I need them to land on after the lead magnet? That was kind of my next thought.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the conversation architecture. So typically what I would do is I would have the lead magnet that makes the invitation to the core offer. Because if that's the goal, if the goal is selling, right, and making money,
not
then
selling.
we make the invitation. And then I would say if it's a no, then I would want to continue the conversation, and that's where, or not yet, right? I would want to make sure that's where the nurture sequence comes in. That's where I think I would introduce that asset that you have to like continue the conversation. I wouldn't put it in front of them before we got a response on the offer itself, because then as the nurture sequence continues, right? The goal is that you're continuing to ask or prompt or seed or remind or promote. Like there's certain, seasons that will come up that you're going to remind people in that nurture sequence or promotion or initiative. So we're going to continue to ask in that nurture sequence, but I wouldn't put the nurture sequence in, I would put it behind the ask after the lead.
Okay.
This makes me think too, like you have to have a place too. Again, if you're not on Instagram, they're not DMing you. You have to have a place for your audience to like connect with you also. So I think email is going to be pretty important. It sounds like you like writing, because that's what I've heard. Like I've heard Substack, I've heard so maybe it's that too. Like it's a combo strategy of writing and like directing them back to the podcast and creating those open loops. Like, oh, my insight like today is really good. Like go listen, just keep that connection. So then the person can reply. And then like in that private podcast, the nurture series, tell them, say like hit reply to the email that I send out an email when there's a new episode and tell me like what landed for you. Like create that relationship, because that is one thing with audio. It does feel very one way. And so they need to know like that they can talk to you. So just like maybe reminding them that email is where you're at, if that's what you're choosing it to be, or WhatsApp. Like maybe you create a WhatsApp group of everyone who's subscribed to this. Like that's also an option. I'm seeing a lot of that out there in Telegram. Okay. So like there is that community piece and that like back and forth. And to Nora's point too earlier of like, you need to get in the heads of your audience. Like the more conversations you have with some of these folks who haven't opted into your coaching package, the better you're going to understand like the gap maybe that you need to fill. And what's cool with audio and what's cool with someone like you who takes action and loves to provide value, like someone might say to you like, oh God, like, it's not decisions for me, it's X. And you're like, I'm just going to whip up a 3 audio series. Like, here we go. You know what I mean? Yeah. That reminds me of Andrea Crowder. Like you can turn into a prolific content creator with audio because it can just like fall out of us. And I think for some of us who like get it, and it sounds like you get it with audio, it's like, let it fall out, create it for even the couple people that said they needed it. And then out of nowhere, you're going to have this huge library that then like, do you know what I mean? Maybe then it inspires you to like, you know, put it somewhere else or whatever, or start the public podcast or something like that. So I think you're in a good spot. I like this. I think this is good. I feel
See
it.
you at the Crochet Mothers next year, huh?
There you go.
You're
right?
sold.
They're going to be on. I love it.
Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah. Okay. I have great action steps to take. I think I need to like chew on it. I would definitely love the transcript, I think, because we talked about so much, but even just remembering to hit reply, like I'm on email, like, you know, I used to do that with the emails, but
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Just remembering like they can also respond or share or
because that's the thing. That's the currency. Like they gave you that. They like probably maybe expect you there. And the more you're there, the better like they'll feel, you know, like they could talk to you. And I think that's important with audio. We have to like create, because there isn't a really reply situation happening. And so that's where
they do get the email.
Cool.
Yeah. WhatsApp could be very cool. And they do get the email. Like I send it out with each episode. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, my dear. Best of luck, and definitely keep us posted. And thanks for hanging out.
Thank you so much for having me on, both of you. You're great. Great team. I see why you guys do it together.
I love that. Thank you.